The Third Testament, Section 16, Prophecies and Parables, Comfort and Promise. Chapter 65, Parables, Comfort and Promise. Parable of the Bad Caretakers. 1. In a desire for mercy, a crowd of hungry, sick, and naked people approached a house. 2. The stewards of the house were continually equipping it to serve those passing through at their tables. 3. The landlord, owner and master of those lands came to preside over the banquet. 4. Time passed, and the needy always found food and shelter in the house. 5. One day that master saw that the water on the table was cloudy, that the food was not healthy and tasty, and that the tablecloths were stained. 6. Then he called to him those charged with the preparation of the table, and said to them, Have you seen the sheets, and tasted the food, and drunk of the water? 7. Yes, Lord, they answered. 8. Then before you give food to these hungry, let your children eat of it first, and if they like the food, give it to these guests. 9. The children took of the bread, the fruits, and what was on the table, but the taste was disgusting, and there was discontent and uproar against it, and they complained violently. 10. Then the landowner said to those who were still waiting, Come under a tree, for I will offer you the fruits of my garden and tasty food. 11. But to the servants he said this, Cleanse the defiled, remove the bad taste from the lips of those whom you have disappointed. I have no favor in you, for I commanded you to receive all the hungry and thirsty, to offer them the best food and pure water, and you have not obeyed. Your work is not pleasing to me. 12. The Lord of those lands now prepared the banquet himself. The bread was full, the fruit healthy and ripe, the water fresh and refreshing. Then he invited those who were waiting for it, beggars, sick and lepers, and all sated themselves, and their joy was great. Soon they were healthy and free from suffering, and they decided to stay on the estate. 13. They began to till the fields, becoming field workers, but they were weak and did not know how to follow the instructions of that Lord. They mixed different kinds of seeds, and the crop degenerated, the wheat was choked by weeds. 14. When the time of the harvest came, the Lord of the manor came and said to them, What are you doing there, when I have given you only the administration of the house to receive the guests? The seed which you have sown is not good, others are appointed to till the fields. Go and cleanse the land of thistles and weeds, and then manage the house again. The well is dried up, the bread is not strong, and the fruit is bitter. Do to the passerby what I have done to you. When you have nourished and healed those who turn to you, when you have removed the pain of your neighbor, then I will let you rest in my house. 196, 47-49. Parable of the crossing of the desert to the great city. 15. Two wanderers walked with slow steps through a vast desert, their feet aching from the hot sand. They walked towards a distant city, and only the hope of reaching their destination enlivened them on their difficult journey, for the bread and water were gradually running out. The younger of the two began to tire and asked his companion to continue the journey alone, because his strength was failing him. 16. The elderly wanderer tried to instill new courage in the young man, telling him that they might soon come across an oasis where they would regain the lost strength, but he did not take new courage. 17. The elder did not intend to abandon him in that wilderness, and though he too was tired, he loaded the weary companion onto his back and continued the journey with difficulty. 18. When the young man was rested, and he had considered the trouble which he had caused to him that carried him on his shoulders, he took him off his neck, and took him by the hand, and so they continued their way. 19 Immense faith inspired the heart of the aged wayfarer, which gave him strength to overcome his weariness. 20 As he had foreseen, an oasis appeared on the horizon, under whose shadow the coolness of a spring awaited them. Finally they reached it and drank of that refreshing water until they had drunk their fill. 21 They fell into a restful sleep, and when they awoke, they felt that the tiredness had disappeared, neither were they hungry nor thirsty. They felt peace in their hearts and the strength to reach the city they sought. 22 They did not really want to leave that place, but the journey had to continue. They filled their vessels with that crystal clear and pure water and resumed their journey. 23 The elderly wanderer, who had been the young man's support, said, "We want to use the water we carry with us only in moderation. It is possible that we may meet some pilgrims along the way who, overcome by exhaustion, are dying of thirst or sick, and it will then be necessary to offer them what we carry with us." 24 The young man disagreed, saying that it would be unreasonable to give of what might not even be enough for themselves, that in such a case they could sell it at the price they wanted, since it had cost them so much effort to obtain that precious element. 25 The old man was not satisfied with this answer, and replied that if they wanted peace in their spirit, they would have to share the water with those in need. 26 Disgruntled, the young man said that he preferred to consume the water of his vessel alone before sharing it with someone whom one would meet along the way. 27 Again, the old man's presentiment came true, for they saw before them a caravan of men, women, and children, lost in the desert, near to destruction. 28 Hurriedly the good old man approached those people and gave them something to drink. The weary felt immediately strengthened, the sick opened their eyes to thank that traveler, and the children stopped crying from thirst. The caravan rose and continued its journey. 29 Peace was in the heart of the noble traveler, while the other, seeing his vessel empty, said anxiously to his companion that they should turn back and go to the spring to replace the water they had used. 30 We must not go back, said the good wanderer. If we have faith, we will find new oases further ahead. 31 But the young man doubted, was afraid, and preferred to say farewell to his companion on the spot, in order to go back to the spring in his desire. They, who had been companions in suffering, separated. While the one continued on the path, inspired by the faith in his destination, the other ran towards the source with the obsession of death in his heart, thinking that he might perish in the desert. 32 Finally he arrived, gasping and exhausted. But satisfied, he drank his fill, forgot his companion, whom he let go alone, and also the city, which he had renounced, and decided to live in the desert from then on. 33 It was not long before a caravan of exhausted and thirsty men and women passed by nearby. They came eagerly nearer to drink from the water of that spring. 34 But suddenly they saw a man appearing, who forbade them to drink and rest if they did not pay him those benefits. It was the young wanderer who had taken possession of the oasis and made himself master of the desert. 35 Those men gave him a sad hearing, because they were poor and could not buy that precious treasure which would quench their thirst. Finally they separated themselves from the little they carried with them, bought a little water to quench their burning thirst, and continued on their way. 36 Soon that man changed from lord to king, for it was not always the poor who went through there were also mighty men who could give a fortune for a glass of water. 37 This man no longer remembered the city on the other side of the desert, and still less the brotherly companion who had carried him on his shoulders and saved him from perishing in that wilderness. 38 One day he saw a caravan coming, which was purposefully heading for the great city. But with astonishment he observed that those men, women, and children stepped out full of strength and joy, singing a song of praise. 39 The man did not understand what he saw, and his surprise became even greater when he saw that at the head of the caravan the one who had been his traveling companion went ahead. 40 The caravan stopped in front of the oasis, while the two men were facing each other, looking at each other in astonishment. Finally, the oasis resident asked the one who had been his companion, "Tell me, how is it possible that there are people who cross this desert without feeling thirsty or tired?" 41 He did this because he thought in his heart of what would become of him from the day when no one would come to ask him for water or shelter. 42 The good wayfarer said to his companion, "I came to the great city, but not alone. Along the way I met the sick, the thirsty, the stray, the exhausted, and I gave them all new courage through the faith that animates me." And so one day, from oasis to oasis, we arrived at the gates of the great city. 43 There I was called before the Lord of that kingdom, who, when he saw that I knew the desert and had compassion on the travelers, gave me the order to return, to be the guide and advisor of the travelers in the tortuous crossing of the desert. 44 And here you see me leading another caravan that I have to take to the great city. And you? What are you doing here? He asked the one who had remained in the oasis. This one was ashamed to remain silent. 45 Then the good traveler said to him, "I know that you have appropriated this oasis, that you sell water and demand money for the shade. These goods do not belong to you, they were put into the desert by a divine power, so that he who needed them might make use of them." 46 Do you see these multitudes of men? They have no need of an oasis, because they neither feel thirst nor grow weary. It is enough that I pass on to them the message which the Lord of the great city sends them through my mediation, and they already set out and find new strength at every step thanks to the high goal which they have, to reach that kingdom. 47 Leave the spring to those who are thirsty, so that they may find refreshment in it, and those who suffer the hardships of the desert may quench their thirst. 48 Your pride and selfishness has blinded you. But what good was it for you to be master of this small oasis, when you lived in this wasteland and robbed yourself of the opportunity to get to know the great city that we were going to meet together? Have you already forgotten that high goal that we both had? 49 When that man had listened in silence to the one who had been a faithful and unselfish companion, he burst into tears, feeling remorse for his transgressions. He tore off his false garments and went to the starting point, which was where the desert began, to follow the path that would lead him to the great city. But now he walked his way illuminated by a new light, that of faith and love for his fellow men. End of the parable. 50 I am the Lord of the great city, and Elijah the aged of my parable. He is the voice of him who cries out in the wilderness, he is he who makes himself known anew among you in fulfillment of the revelation which I gave you at the transfiguration on Mount Tabor. It is he who leads you in the third time to the great city where I await you to give you the eternal reward of my love. 51 Follow Elijah, O beloved people, and everything will change in your life, in your worship of God and your ideals, everything will be changed. 52 Have you believed that your imperfect practice of religion would last forever? No, my disciples. Tomorrow, when your spirit sees the great city on the horizon, he will say like his Lord, my kingdom is not of this world. 28:18-40. Parable of the Magnanimity of a King. 53 Once upon a time there was a king who, surrounded by his subjects, celebrated a victory which he had achieved over a rebellious people who had become vassals. 54 The king and his subjects sang a victory hymn. Then the king said to his people in this way, the strength of my arm has triumphed and has made my kingdom grow, but the defeated I will love as I love you, I will give them fields on my estates to plant the vine, and it is my will that you love them as I love them. 55 As time passed, and among that people, which had been won by the love and righteousness of that king, there appeared a man who rebelled against his Lord, and tried to kill him in his sleep, but only wounded him. 56 Faced with his crime, that man fled in fear to hide in the darkest woods, while the king lamented the ingratitude and absence of his subordinate, for his heart loved him greatly. 57 That man was taken prisoner on his flight by a people hostile to the king, and when he was accused of being a subject of him whose rule they did not recognize, the king, frightened, cried out at the top of his voice to them that he was a fugitive because he had just killed the king. But they did not believe him and condemned him to die at the stake after he had been martyred. 58 When he was already bleeding, and they were about to throw him into the fire, it happened that the king passed by there with his servants who were looking for the rebel, and when he saw what was happening here, that ruler raised his arm and said to the servants, What are you doing there, rebellious people? And at the sound of the king's majestic and commanding voice the rebels bowed down before him. 59 The ungrateful subject, who was still lying in fetters near the fire, waiting only for the execution of his judgment, was amazed and dismayed when he saw that the king was not dead, and that he approached him step by step and untied him. 60 He led him away from the fire and treated his wounds. Then he gave him wine to drink, clothed him with a new white robe, and after kissing him on the forehead, he said to him, My subject, why did you flee from me? Why did you hurt me? Do not answer me with words, I only want you to know that I love you, and I tell you now, come and follow me. 61 That people who witnessed these scenes of mercy cried out in wonder and inwardly changed, Hosanna, Hosanna. They confessed themselves as obedient vassals of that king and received only benefits from their master, and the subject who once rebelled, overwhelmed by so much love of his king, made the resolution to repay those proofs of boundless affection by loving and worshipping his master forever, overcome by his so perfect action. End of the parable. 62 Behold, people, how clear is my word! But men fight against me and lose their friendship with me. 63 What harm have I done to men? What harm does my teaching and my law bring them? 64 Know that no matter how many times you hurt me, every time you will be forgiven. But then you are also obliged to forgive your enemies whenever they offend you. 65 I love you, and if you take a step away from me, I take the same step to draw near to you. When you close the gates of your temple to me, I will knock on them until you open and I can enter it. 100,61-70. Beatitudes and blessings. 66. Blessed is he who bears his suffering with patience, for it is precisely in his meekness that he will find the strength to continue to bear his cross on his path of development. 67. Blessed is he who endures humiliation with humility and is able to forgive those who have offended him, for I will justify him. But woe to those who judge the actions of their fellow men, for they will be judged in their turn. 68. Blessed is he who fulfills the first commandment of the law and loves me more than anything created. 69. Blessed is he who lets me judge his just or unjust cause. 44, 52-55. 70. Blessed is he who humbles himself on earth, for I will forgive him. Blessed is he who is slandered, for I will bear witness to his innocence. Blessed is he who bears witness to me, for I will bless him. And him who is misjudged because of the practice of my teaching, him will I acknowledge. 8,30. 71. Blessed are those who fall and rise again, those who weep and bless me, those who, wounded by their own brothers, trust me in the depths of their heart. These small and afflicted, mocked but meek and therefore strong in spirit are in truth my disciples. 22:30. 72. Blessed is he who blesses the will of his Lord, blessed is he who blesses his own suffering, because he knows that it will wash away his stains. For he gives his steps a foothold to climb the spiritual mountain. 308:10. 73. All expect the light of a new day, the dawn of peace, which is to be the beginning of a better age. The oppressed await the day of their liberation, the sick hope for a cure that will give them back health, strength and joy of life. 74. Blessed are those who know how to wait until the last moment, for what they have lost will be returned to them with interest. I bless this expectation because it is proof of faith in me. 286, 59-60. 75. Bless the faithful, bless those who stand firm until the end of their trials. Blessed are those who have not wasted the strength that my teaching has given them, for they will survive the vicissitudes of life powerfully and lightfully in the coming times of bitterness. 311:10. 76. Blessed are those who bless me on the altar of creation and humbly accept the consequences of their transgressions without attributing them to divine punishments. 77. Blessed are those who know how to obey my will and humbly accept their trials. They will all love me. 325, 7-8. Encouragement for upward development. 78. Blessed are those who ask me with humility and faith for the assent of their spirit, because they will receive what they ask from their Father. 79. Blessed are those who know how to wait, for my merciful help will come into their hands at the right moment. 80. Learn to ask and also to wait, knowing that nothing escapes my will to love. Trust that my will is manifested in each of your needs and in each of your trials. 35, 1-3. 81. Blessed are those who dream of a paradise of peace and harmony. 82. Blessed are those who have despised and regarded with indifference the trivialities, the vanities and passions which do not bring anything good to man, and even less to his spirit. 83. Blessed are those who have eliminated the fanatical rituals that lead nowhere, and have abandoned old and erroneous beliefs to embrace absolute, naked and pure truth. 84 I bless those who reject the outward appearance to devote themselves instead to spiritual contemplation, love and inner peace, because they realize more and more that the world does not give peace, that you can find it in yourselves. 85 Blessed are those of you who have not been frightened by the truth and have not been outraged by it, for truly, I tell you, the light will fall like a waterfall on your spirit to satisfy forever your desire for light. 263, 2:6. 86 Blessed is he who hears my teachings, makes them his own and follows them, for he will know how to live in the world, will know how to die to the world, and when his hour has come, will resurrect in eternity. 87 Blessed is the one who immerses himself in my word, for he has learned to understand the reason for the pain, the meaning of reparation and atonement, and instead of despairing or blaspheming, with which he would increase his torment, he rises up full of faith and hope to fight, so that the burden of his debts may become lighter daily and his cup of suffering less bitter. 88 Cheerfulness and peace are inherent in the men of faith, those who agree with the Father's will. 283, 45-47. 89 Your progress or upward development will enable you to discover my truth and to perceive my divine presence, both in the spiritual and in each of my works. Then I will say to you, blessed are those who are able to recognize me everywhere, for it is they who really love me. Blessed are they who are able to feel me with the spirit and even with the body, for it is they who have given sensitivity to their whole being, who have truly spiritualized themselves. 305, 61-62. 90 You know that from my high throne I envelop the universe in my peace and blessings. 91 Everything is blessed by me at every hour, in every moment. 92 From me is not, nor will ever come any curse or condemnation for my children. Therefore, without seeing righteous or sinners, I let my blessings, my kiss of love and my peace come down on all. 319,49, 50. My peace be with you. The call of God. Call to the people of this time. Men, rise up, time is pressing, and if you do not do it on this day you will no longer awaken in this life on earth. Do you want to continue to sleep in spite of my message? Do you want the death of the flesh to wake you up, with the consuming fire of repentance of your spirit without matter? Be sincere, enable yourselves to be in spiritual life, in the face of truth, where nothing can excuse your materialism, where you really see yourselves in rags, stained, dirty and torn, which your spirit will wear as clothing. Verily, I tell you, there, at the sight of your misery and in the feeling of so great shame, you will feel the immeasurable desire to wash yourselves clean in the water of deepest repentance, because you know that you can only go pure to the feast of the Spirit. See yourselves beyond human egoism with all its infirmities, which are currently your pride, your satisfaction, and tell me whether you have felt the pain of men, whether the sobs of women or the cries of children echo in your hearts. So tell me, what have you been to men? Have you been life for them? 228,62, 63. Call to the intellectuals. Come to me, you intellectuals who are weary of death and disappointed in your hearts. Come to me, you who are confused and have hated instead of loving. I will give you rest and make you understand that the Spirit who is obedient to my commandments never tires. I will introduce you to a science that never confuses the intelligence. 282, 54. Call to the toilsome and laden. Come to me, you afflicted, lonely and sick people. You who drag chains of sin with you, you humbled, hungry and thirsty for righteousness, be with me. In my presence many of your evils will disappear and you will feel your burden become lighter. If you want to possess the goods of the Spirit, I will grant them to you. If you ask me for earthly goods to make good use of them, I will give them to you likewise, because your request is noble and just. Then you will become good trustees, and I will grant you the increase of those goods so that you let your fellow men share in them. 144, 80-81. Call to the spiritual Israel. Israel, become the leader of mankind, give her this bread of eternal life, show her this spiritual work, so that the different religions may spiritualize themselves in my teaching, and in this way the kingdom of God may come to all people. 249,66. Hear me, beloved Israel. Open your spiritual eyes and behold the glory of your Father. Hear my voice through your conscience, hear with your spiritual ears the heavenly melodies, so that your heart and spirit may rejoice, so that you may feel peace, for I am peace and invite you to live in it. I reveal to you the love that I have felt for mankind at all times, the reason why Jesus shed his most precious blood in the second time to redeem you from sin, to teach you love and imprint true teaching on your mind and heart. 283, 71. Set your eyes on me when you have lost the way, be with me today. Lift up your thoughts to me and speak to me as a child speaks to his father, as one speaks confidently to a friend. 280, 31. Walk under my teaching, feel like new people, exercise my virtues, then it will become ever more light in your spirit, and Christ will manifest himself in your way. 228, 60. People, go to the people, speak to them as Christ spoke to you, with the same compassion, determination and hope. Let them know that there are ways of upward development that give greater satisfactions than those that grant material goods. Let them know that there is a faith that allows faith and hope beyond what is visible and tangible. Tell them that their spirit will live eternally and that they must therefore prepare themselves to be able to participate in that eternal bliss. 359, 94-95. THEEND